See if that fixed anything. Stream says it's offline. Why? It's back. Is it working? Question. I got an ad on the stream. I can't see if it's working or not. Definitely looks smoother in the like mini player. I'm gonna move calls. I think we are back and running. On my end, it's looking a lot smoother. I think we are good and rolling. That looks much smoother now, so do keep me posted. I have the chat open right now, so I am paying attention, but it should be working now, so I apologize for the loss of time there. Just the opening 5 minutes of qualifying, so we hopefully didn't miss all too much. Nico has set the fastest lap of the race, or of the qualifying session. Rufo in P2, both in the championship and on track, and Kerlin managing his way into P3 just ahead of Yuzubi. A 2:0:05 for both Yuzubi and Kerlin. A 59:1 for Nico. We'll see an improvement to that lap time almost certainly. Yeah, stream is looking a lot smoother now, I think. I'm watching it in the mini player right now, so we should be all back and rolling. Everything should be going smooth now. Apologies for that little issue. I don't know what was up. I just stopped the stream and then restarted, and then it fixed itself, so something must have been set wrong or something. Whatever the case, we are good and rolling. Fixing a few other HUD elements, just making sure everything's working properly. Much better. Alright, yeah, we are good to go. Apologies for that interruption. I think everything is going smooth now. Small technical difficulties, but it's nothing that we can't get solved. And Nico has the fastest lap right now, 59.17. Next best lap is done by Rufo, a 59.89. So good lap from the Mustang driver, but a far better lap from the Ferrari. Rufo will need to improve by almost nearly a full second if he wants to take away pole position from the Ferrari driver. Yuzubi just manages his way into P3 his last lap, a 0.2. Kerlin's best lap just behind him, a 0.32. So very, very close margins there. Only, what's that? Only 0.04 of a second separating P3 and P4 right now. That's a blink of an eye if you are wondering. Hardly a blink of an eye. So very, very close margins between these two drivers, and they're going to be juking it out on track to see who can get their best lap in the latest. Nico improves his lead over his competition with a 59.057, so nearly into those 58s, but just barely shy of those 58s. He'll need to improve by less than a tenth of a second, and right now he's got the delta to do so. Yuzubi crossed the line, no improvement from the Ferrari driver. Arch improves to P4 just behind him, so now the gap separating all of these drivers closes in even further. And Arct is fighting Yuzubi for the championship right now. That is P3 in the championship that they're fighting for, and P3 in the qualifying session they're fighting for. So fitting that they would be in this position on track today. Only 6 points separating them, and the difference between points at the front of the grid is 5, so he'll need a position and a fifth of a position. Rather, 2 positions, depending on where he ends up. If they both end up further back of the field, say an incident in the first lap, that will push both of them backwards, and will play influence onto those points separation. Nico currently on improvement as he goes through Spoon. Spoon is one of the more tricky corners here at Suzuka. Shouldn't be too much of a challenge for the drivers, albeit could see some overtaking issues in that corner. I know personally I've seen a lot of incidents there, whether that be just people trying to overtake, or rather not even trying to overtake, just having incidents there, because it's hard to follow through Spoon. SEO triangle, nice easy corner for Nico here, and he will improve his lap by 0.4 of a second, so that will set him a very healthy margin to the drivers behind. It will be a 58.69. That's the best lap we've seen all day in all sessions, and it's an amazing lap time from the Ferrari driver, who will return to the pits, and I can't see him exiting the pits afterwards unless Rufo looks to be challenging in any meaningful way. And right now, Rufo doesn't have the lap time he needs in order to take away P1 from the Ferrari driver. He does need to improve by a full second. 0.8 of a second, rather. He has improved just a little bit on his last lap, but it's a huge margin. 0.8 of a second on these kind of conditions is so much time. And it can't be understated just how difficult it is to close in that big of a margin. And if anyone is wondering in the chat, Dark Pengu 24 is Nico. He does talk in the chat during the races and gives us a little bit of insight on what's going on. And right now he just says he's recalculating his fuel. So he might leave the pits again, but he will be leaving the pits to do a little bit of race pace, I imagine. A couple drivers do have penalties to serve today, so they will be stuck in the pit lane for the duration of the qualifying session. That does mean that they will not get a qualifying lap in. They will start at the back of the grid. I believe only Spinner is the only driver here with their penalty that is actively serving it. I think the other 2 drivers with penalties did not show up to today's race, so unfortunate for them. They will have to serve it on the next one. That is Rufo into the pit lanes, so he will not get another lap in for a little bit. Still 7 minutes on the clock, so still time for drivers to leave the pit lane. Used to be in the pits, but Art is out on track, and that is the BMW driver fighting for P3 in the championship. Right now, P4 in the championship, and P4 on track. Right now, the championship order is your leaderboard order for those top 4. I can't be for sure on P5. I think P5 is a new face, not one I recognize off the bat. No improvement for the BMW. It is an outlap, so he will not gain any lap time. Andrew Taggart on improvement as he goes down into Spoon. 0.3 up on his personal best, and making it 0.4, 0.5, and now dropping back down to 0.3. So not the best exit from Spoon, but a good entry to Spoon will gain him just a little bit of time. That bad exit will cost him in the long run, though. Apologies if I sound a little bit snuffy. I was doing some work outside, and I have quite bad allergies at this time of year. It's unfortunate. Allergies are the bane of my existence. Imagine there's a few other people in the chat who share that same view. Andrew Taggart will not improve on his lap. 0.1 down after a little bit of a messy last sector. And that last sector will not help him in the slightest improving his lap. So he will stay in P9 just for now. Driver up ahead, yellow flag. I believe they are returning to the pit lane. Andrew Taggart will do the same. Here in Phoenix Sport, you are allowed to return to the pit lane just as long as you are off the track and not causing a hazard to other drivers. Speaking of potential hazards, Art will have to deal with lap traffic here, and he will have to go the long way around. That's going to cost him a bunch of lap time, and very likely a penalty for the Aston Martin. So certainly not the ideal way to give way to a faster driver, I must say. Art will certainly agree with that one as he invalidates his lap, so he will not improve. Driver does improve is Robert Kerlin, crossing the line with a 2-minute flat, 0.020 on his delta, or not even on his delta, on his lap time. That will set him just ahead of Usby, so now the gap separating P3 and P4 is 0.06 of a second, rather than the 0.04 was only a few minutes prior. And that is closing up the gap quite neatly here. Robert Kerlin has the improvement in that first sector in order to take his position in P2, rather than even just P3. So he could do a very nice lap here, as he does invalidate, so spoke too soon, but he has a potential for a very good lap. Whatever the case, Rufo not on improvement right now, just barely shy of improvement. Carlos goes P3 with a 59.912, so setting himself just in front of Kerlin and just in front of Usby. So Usby's dropped several places, so has Art. Both of those two championship contenders are now in a position where those points differences between P5 and P6 will be enough to make the difference when it comes down to championship position. If Art manages P5 and Usby only stays P6, if they switch orders during the race, that could play impact to this championship fight. I think that'll put Art on equal footing with Usby. They'll have exactly the same points. Could be mistaken there. Which will make for some very interesting racing. Rufo not on improvement, but Usby is on improvement, and is he going to set himself up a few positions? Certainly looks like he will as he crosses the line from P5 all the way up until P3 with a 59.642. So a good improvement from him, and almost enough to take away Rufo's P2. Could be a very nice lap here from Usby if he manages to hold on to this delta. 0.2 up on his delta already, which is enough to challenge for P2, so he just needs to keep this lap going. Nico on improvement in P1, we don't need to click over to him, because we already know how fast he's going. Carlos just behind Usby on improvement as well, 0.4 up. Lots of drivers in that top 5 on improvement. Carlos on improvement, Usby on improvement, Nico on improvement, and Rufo also briefly on improvement there. So all 4 drivers in the top 4 improving their laps. This is do or die for the drivers right now. They need to get this lap in, or they will almost certainly be overtaken by their opposition. Everyone needs to improve, and right now, I think Carlos just improved his lap all the way up until a 59.342, so that'll set Usby down into P4, Rufo down into P3, and Kerlin P5. Art now is stranded in P6. He'll need improvement if he wants to challenge his championship rival, and Rufo slowing down, giving up his lap. Carlos invalidated on his, Nico also invalidated. Still improvement for Usby here, as he goes down the back straightaway here. Backstretch here at Suzuka is one of my favorite parts of the track. Leads into 130R and the chicane. The chicane is very nice for any car that isn't a Ferrari. Unfortunately, Usby is in a Ferrari, so the chicane tends to be a little bit tricky to drive properly. Quite a slippery bit of track when you have to go flying over the curbs, and he will lose his lap time in that final little section, so not improving yet for the Ferrari driver. There's one last chance for him to improve. Sebastian on improvement right now in P8, 0.3 up on his delta. That's going to be several positions worth of time if he can manage to hold on to the lap. Time separating the top 10 right now is very, very close. There's not a lot of gaps between drivers. That doesn't mean all these drivers that are on improvement right now are going to move up at least a position or 2, potentially. So lots of improvement for these drivers right now. and plenty of opportunities for them to improve their position and get into a little bit of a fight at the start of this race. And that's what we want to see, is some good battles today. Andrew Taggart not improving on his lap, so he will not fight Sebastian for this position. Wooler in front will not improve on his lap just yet. He's on a 0-0 right now, so Sebastian, if he can hold on to this, will move himself up a position. But can he hold on to it through the chicane? It doesn't look like it's going to be... Oh, it's 0.3 for a second there, but it's not going to be improvement from the Ferrari driver enough to take away P7, so he will be stuck in a P8. He gets one more lap in here with 20 seconds left on the clock. This is his final lap of qualifying. Usby in the pits, Carlos in the pits, so Usby cements his position in P4 unless Kurt Lindbein can take it away from him. Sebastian, 0.1 through that first corner. Linus 1.3 as he crosses the line. That will set himself up a few positions. He'll go from P14 all the way to P8, so a great lap from him getting into that top 10. Very worthwhile positions. Mallow goes from P18 to P15, so improvement at the back of the field. Flynn right now on improvement as he goes through Spoon in that BMW. He's up 0.3 of a second. That will be enough to go up several positions all the way into P15 if he can manage to hold on to this lap. Kerlin on an invalidated lap, so he will not improve. He will not take the position away from Usby, and this is the end of session for all of these drivers who are crossing the line. 0 seconds left on the clock. Jonathan on improvement right now in P14, 0.2 up on his delta. Cavalcanti improving on his lap in P11, so we'll wait to see as these drivers cross the line where they end up. And right now, it looks like we're not going to see improvement from Flynn. Will we see improvement from Cavalcanti as he goes through Spoon for the final time this qualifying session? Down onto the backstretch. Will it be improvement for the McLaren driver, or will he be destined to stay just outside of the top 10? P11 right now. He just needs to improve by 0.1 of a second, less than 0.1 of a second, half a tenth of a second improvement will set himself into P10 and demote Andrew Taggart out of that top 10. Final few corners here, the chicane. Quite nice here in the McLaren, but he is going to miss that first curb, miss the second curb. It's going to be a little bit of a poor exit from the McLaren driver. 0.2 on the Delta, dropping quickly. Now crossing the line, will it be improvement? It's going to be improvement for the McLaren driver. He crosses the line with a wonderful lap, setting himself into P10 and taking away Andrew Taggart's chances of a top 10 start. So great lap here from the drivers, overlaying the HUDs right now. Not sure what I can do about that. We'll be briefly back. I'll leave you with the calendar, that way you can see. I'll leave you with the waiting screen. We got a waiting screen. Drivers will be getting ready to start the race. It's going to be a little bit, I think it's 5 minutes of sitting for drivers to prepare themselves mentally, get their setups ready and finalized, get their fuel going, and just make sure the car is in operating condition for this race. And as I said, we are here at the wonderful track of Suzuka. It is going to be an amazing race today. Drivers will start on that top right section of the track. That's where we're going to see some of the first of the overtakes. That first sector there, the snake quite a difficult section of S's, down into the Dunlop corner, and now down into the second sector. Quite a difficult second sector here at Suzuka, one of the more challenging second sectors. Down to the hairpin, we'll see a lot of overtakes, so will we at Spoon. These are the two most important corners for drivers to get right, as those will have the biggest overtaking opportunities. 130R, one of the more difficult corners, and then down into the chicane to end the lap. Important for your first corner, but not all that important overall, at least in my opinion. I find the middle sector to be the do-or-die sector here at Suzuka. Drivers are getting ready to start the race. They're here on the grid for the formation lap. Still a little bit of time left until drivers get out and rolling. With that being said, we are seeing... we will have a look at some of the liveries. We are going to see some good battling today, almost certainly. There we are. Getting everything prepared. I have to input some data for the race, and we are all good. So we will go have a look at some of the various liveries that will be wonderfully displayed on track today. Leading this race will be Nico, starting the formation lap in that number 24 Ferrari. Currently leading the championship and setting himself into a great position to continue that lead of the championship. Carlos in P2 with the BWT AMG. Just a default in-game livery, but one we always appreciate seeing on track. Rufo with his number 222 Mustang. Usby with his number 29 Ferrari. Wonderful livery from him. Kerlin in P5 with a nice-looking Audi livery. Arced in P6 with a livery we've seen many times before and hope to see many times again. Florian with a nice-looking AMG livery. Linus with a nice-looking 557 Motorsport. No, it's just a 557 car number, sorry. Sebastian with the Ferrari in P9. Cavalcanti in P10. Just barely pushing Andrew Taggart out of that top 10. The number 49 Phoenix Simsport McLaren. One of the nicest liveries on track. One of my favorite liveries on track. Kelly in P12 with the number 91 RSR Ferrari. Ivanov in P13 with a wonderful looking Lamborghini livery. Jonathan in P14 with a nice looking AMG. Mallow P15 with a default livery, or rather not a default livery, but an in-game livery. Julian in P16 with the McLaren, nice bright orange. Flynn with a sort of synthwave-inspired livery. Very, very nice. Osdir with a rather plain but nice-looking Aston Martin livery. Plain but nice is always nice. Joe Viper with the BMW, another synthwave style livery. Zachary in a... I want to say that's an in-game livery, but I don't entirely know. Pierre in P21, Dennis P22, Marco Stick in P23 with a nice looking like watercolored inspired McLaren livery. Now it's a little bit hard to see now that the headlights are on. Those headlights are incredibly bright here in the GT3s. Jake Spinner P24 did not get a lap in as he was serving his quali ban, but now he is free to charge ahead of the field. And Gary in P25 at the tail end of the pack. Lots of drivers here today, 25 cars, but only one winner, and only 20 points available, or only 20 positions of points worth available for the drivers. Adding on the fact that the top 10 are worth significantly more than the bottom 10 of those 20, and the top 5 worth even more in both of those halves. So there's going to be a scramble for championship points today. Lots of drivers very, very close on track. That front of the grid looking absolutely packed today. I expect to see some very, very good racing from the field. It's always what we are hoping for here in Phoenix Sim Sport. Should be a little bit of a more difficult race. It is a night race. Suzuka is well lit though, so the track doesn't look all too dark. Does certainly look dark for us in the commentary booth, but the drivers will be looking ahead to where all of those lights are and the track surface being illuminated by them. Adding in mind that the GT3 headlights are incredibly bright. We'll have a look in just a second so you can see a nice perspective of just how bright those lights truly are. Trees and buildings illuminated up ahead, hardly a thing hidden by them. And well, I don't think ACC gets quite how bright these are, even then. These things are incredible. Through Spoon they go to open this formation lap, getting ready to go down into that final sector and, well, eventually cross the line and start this race. 1 hour of racing looms ahead of the drivers. 1 mandatory pit stop for all of them. That's that orange mark you see next to their racing number. If that orange mark goes green, they've served their mandatory pit stop and they no longer have to go in. All drivers are required to pit at least once during this race. That does mean that there is some strategy to play with here at Suzuka, especially a track with such high tire wear. I think we might see the undercut taking a little bit of a priority over the overcut. Although the overcut will certainly allow you to overtake easier in that second half. So it certainly can be used. Especially if your opposition decides to go for the undercut. You could overcut them and take advantage of the potential misplay if they don't get enough of a gap to you soon enough. Getting ready to start this race, Nico will lead the field, followed by Carlos, followed by Rufo for our top three. Yuzubi just outside of it and fighting with his championship rival in P6. That is just behind him, so we could see an overtake into the first corner between these two championship contenders, or two P3 championship contenders. Nico in P1 will lead the field, and it's green, 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 and away we go. It's a good launch from all of the drivers. A better launch for the Audi, and not so great a launch for Yuzubi on that outside line. Side by side with the Mustang. Carlos in P2 will lose the position to Rufo. Yuzubi looking to get in on that action, but not quite in the space to take advantage. Side by side, I believe that was Kerlin. Not Kerlin, was it Kerlin? No, it's Arct and Florian side by side through the S's right now. The gap only 0.1 of a second between the pair of them. That will be Arct taking his position back from the AMG, who tried so hard to take it from him through that first corner. It's not out of the woods just yet. Very, very close at the front of the field. We're keeping an eye on that, but no overtakes just yet. And Florian right on the bumper of that BMW, looking for the move. Carlos under threat from Yuzubi here as we go down into the hairpin. Will we see a potential move down into Spoon? Very, very close between Kerlin and Yuzubi. And on exit, Yuzubi will get side by side briefly with the AMG, but the AMG, better traction out of the corner, will stay in front just for now, but Yuzubi knows there's a weak corner that he can take advantage of if he just gets the power down soon enough. But will he be able to get the power down soon enough? It's not the easiest thing to do on the inside there. Yuzubi a little bit quicker through Spoon. Will have a good run down onto the straightaway. A little bit wide for the Ferrari driver. A little bit too early for the Ferrari driver. Will lose him a little bit of speed. Kerlin behind in that Audi will be very, very quick in a straight line. Very, very quick on a track like Suzuka, where cornering and straight line speed matter the most. AMG and Audi both run wide. Yuzubi keeps it on the racing line. That will potentially be a warning for the drivers already. Track limit warnings here at Suzuka can be quite harsh, can be quite easy. It depends how you drive the car. Right now, looks like Yuzubi could challenge for the for P3 down into T1. 0.1 of a second separating. AMG goes defensive down into the corner. USB will try to sweep around the outside of Carlos. Not going to be the space for him just yet. He might go for the switchback here. Carlos is wise to it, gets a good exit, holds that inside line. It's very defensive, middle of the track defending. USB looks for the gap, but there's not going to be one just yet, and they are fighting tooth and nail here at the start of this race. No space for offer now, and USB's a little bit on the back foot. That will give Kerlin an opportunity to try and make the move. That'll slow down Arct and Florian behind and potentially group up the field just a little bit more. And USB looking at the back of that AMG, trying to pick his move carefully. He's gone for it once, nearly got overtaken by Kerlin in the process. He needs to pick his move carefully. Kerlin was closing in very, very quickly the moment they started fighting, and that Audi will be a problem for the Ferrari. Its weaknesses and strengths align very well to make it a good car to overtake with. The Audi really doesn't struggle anywhere in particular, whereas the Ferrari struggles on that straightaway. It won't be able to keep up with some of the other cars here at Suzuka. But it will have the cornering speed and the cornering grip, and that's where we're seeing a lot of influence with this race, is USB can stay close during the corners because of that superior cornering, and the good exits allow him to stay within that slipstream, keep his top speed up, utilizing the car in front. It sort of masks the weakness of the Ferrari, but as soon as you get in front of another car and you don't have that slipstream, that's where you start to end up in dangerous territory. That's where you're a little bit on the back foot. That's a bad line from the AMG. This might open up the opportunity for overtaking. USB practically pushing the AMG out of the corner. They're going to go side by side down the straightaway, maybe, if the AMG doesn't get a good launch out of the corner, but it looks like USB potentially got held up there, and now Kerlin looking for the space on the outside of the corner. Not going to be any space for any of the drivers here to make the overtake into T1, but that will close them in significantly as we go down into the S's. 0.3 of a second separating USB from Carlos and Kerlin from USB, so hardly a gap between these drivers right now, and it must be less than 0.3 of a second as Kerlin nearly pushes USB through the S's there. Cavalcanti close behind Linus for P10 and a P9 there. Keeping an eye on some of the midfield battles, because there's plenty of midfield battles, but this front of field battle is quite intense right now and certainly doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. USB has the pace. Carlos on that back foot, still on the defensive, still trying to get away, but there's not going to be enough of a gap for him to get away, and USB will dive down the inside, side by side through the hairpin. USB has the inside line. Kerlin tries to follow. It's going to be side by side for Carlos and Kerlin as we go down into the third sector. If it'll pan the camera to the drivers right now, still side by side. AMG has the inside line for the sweeping corner, but the Audi has the inside line for Spoon. It's going to be the AMG dropping down 2 positions. Kerlin taking a great advantage of USB's move and staying just behind the Ferrari drivers. We go down towards the back stretch. AMG of Carlos now under threat from Arct behind. 0.3 of a second separating them, and it is a BMW. So quick on the straightaways here will play influence into this overtake, potentially down into 130R or on the exit of 130R. BMW with a much more stable aero platform will have a better launch down into the chicane. Is it going to be a dive from the BMW? No, it is not going to be a dive from the BMW. He stays back just for now, and Carlos will have a little bit of breathing room from the cars in front. Good exit from Carlos, bad exit from Kerlin. Will now put Kerlin on the back foot going down into the first corner. So Carlos with the potential to overtake and take back at least P4 for his troubles. He looks to the inside, but there's not going to be space for him, so he backs out of the move last minute, and that leaves Kerlin in P4. So Kerlin holding that position that he gained so wonderfully, and Carlos still fighting tooth and nail for that position that he wants back so desperately. USB P3 is running away with it now that Kerlin and Carlos are holding each other up. Arct is staying right with this group, so not out of the fight yet for the P6 driver. Florian in P7 has dropped back, so 1 second separating him from Arct, but you can see the group behind Florian. There's not going to be much space for the drivers. That's 7, or is that 7? I think that is 7 drivers all in close proximity. What a battle we are witnessing right now. And this is the racing we expected here at Suzuka, and this is the racing we're gonna get for the rest of this hour-long brawl as it is right now, because this is certainly only described as a brawl, and a good one at that. No contact from the drivers, I don't think. It's been a very, very clean race so far. Everything's been really fair from these drivers, and it's always amazing to witness battling of this level. Cavalcanti very close behind Linus here. McLaren will chase down that Lamborghini on the straightaway. Lamborghini doesn't have quite the straight line speed of the McLaren, and that's going to cost him down into 130R. Nearly allows Cavalcanti side by side. Both of them will miss the apex. Both of them will miss the second apex. And it's going to be a bad line from the McLaren onto the straightaway. Lamborghini makes the best of it and will run away just a little bit. Kelly behind Ivanov here for P12 and P11. Ivanov P11 right now. Kelly P12. He wants to improve and he wants to go up on this pecking order. And right now, it's not going to be enough of a gap for him to send it through turn 1, but will it be enough out of the S's? He is closing in quite significantly. This is one of Kelly's strongest sectors here at Suzuka, and you can certainly see in how he's driving the car, just how close he gets to the Lamborghini in front, how comfortable he is driving the car fast through this section. That gap will slowly diminish as we go through this first sector, but it should open back up through the second sector. That's where the Lamborghini will be quicker than the Ferrari. Apologies. Yeah, that will be where the Lamborghini is quicker than the Ferrari. Ferrari tends to be better at the high-speed sections than the Lamborghini. Lamborghini tends to be better at the low-speed sections. Lambo has a lot more rotation than the Ferrari does. The Ferrari tends to be quite planted to the ground, but in that regard, also means you don't have as much low-speed maneuverability. Bad exit from the Lamborghini could allow Kelly to make a move down into Spoon here. 0.3 of a second separating them, and now that will be 0.2 as they go through the long sweeping bend of turn 12. Turn 12 is, well, not really a turn here. It's more of a straightaway than it is a turn. Down into Spoon. Not going to be enough for Kelly to make the move, but he will be able to make the move down onto the straightaway. It's very, very close between them as they exit the exit turn 14 and go down onto the backstretch. Not a single gap separating these two. Less than a meter, I'd imagine. Maybe a little bit more than a meter. Kelly wants it to be less than a meter, though, and the Lamborghini will cover him off very late to the outside, but is fully entitled to do so. He's fully ahead, and Kelly has no rights to the corner just yet. Staying very close through the chicane. Will it be a good line from the both of them? A little bit of a poor exit from the Ferrari driver will allow the Lamborghini to run away just a little bit on the straightaway. Incident at the back of the field. It's yellow flag for Spinner. Wonder if some sort of contact between him and another driver occurred. We won't know for sure until after the race. Florian staying close to Arct here. Arct has not run away. In fact, he's dropped back off of the fight with Carlos, so now Arct on that defensive will leave Florian in a position to fight, and Sebastian just behind, ready to take advantage of any mistakes from the cars in front. Sebastian in that blue and black Ferrari, closing in quite significantly to the back of the AMG here. AMG up ahead goes very wide, and that, I believe, is Carlos, and that's going to potentially play impact into this race. As, well, that will close the gap with Arct significantly. Arct, I think Arct might have made the same mistake, because the gap really hasn't closed between them. And now that will leave, we'll leave Florian now under threat from, or Sebastian under threat from Florian. So I think a lot of drivers making a mistake in that one corner. This could be the overtake here. The AMG much quicker on the straight than the Ferrari, and it's a great exit from the AMG as we go down the backstretch for one of the first times this race. We're still very early into this brawl. And we've already seen so many battles. Dust being kicked up on that inside line from one of the cars ahead. That wasn't Sebastian kicking up that dust. Down into the chicane. It's a good line from the AMG. A bad line from the Ferrari might cost them here on the straightaway. 0.5 separating. We'll see how that gap changes as we go down the main straight. It's one of the important sections of track to get right. If you get it wrong, or that chicane rather, if you get that wrong, it costs you all the way down into turn 1. And even then, you might even lose time out of turn 1 if it messes up your braking, carrying a different amount of speed than usual. Good drivers tend to be able to adapt to different changes in speed, but sometimes it can be quite difficult for some of these drivers who are not on the top of esports pace. They're here to get better, they're here to fight, and that is certainly what they're doing right now. Kelly on the back of Ivanov still. Wonder where Andrew Taggart ended up, because Kelly is in the position Andrew Taggart started the race, and Andrew Taggart has dropped back all the way to P15, so I think McLaren driver having a little bit of trouble here at Suzuka. And Art will make the move along the outside of the hairpin. I think that was Art making the move on the outside of the hairpin. A wonderful move. Inside still open. Carlos might try to send it. There's still space left. Very, very little space left, but space left regardless. And very, very close battling between the pair of drivers. We'll go back and have a look at the replay, because we did miss that overtake. Looking a little bit further back of the field. I did not go farther back on the replay, so we will not in fact see that. Hopefully I should be able to capture this. I will go back on replay just again. I think I have the gap set up properly now. UZB has closed in on the back of Rufo. A little bit of a gap opening up again as UZB makes a mistake. Florian right on the back of Sebastian for P7 and P8. This should allow us to see the move that Arct made. So on board, you can see Carlos in front makes a mistake. Very, very slow. That will leave Arct to the outside line of the hairpin. Is it going to be a dive from Arct? It sure is. And he makes it the long way around the hairpin. It's not a move you usually see, but it's a move that we are seeing. And a wonderful move at that. Used to be on the back of the Mustang here in P2. So this is the fight for the middle step of the podium. Or rather, one of the side steps of the podium. P1 is usually the middle step, but it is the halfway marker to P1, and Usby would like to be just that a bit closer to his front of grid position. Still, right on the bumper of that Mustang. Mustang very quick in the straights. That will leave Usby with a very, very difficult job of closing in through the corners and overtaking during those corners. His sector will likely be Sector 1 if he wants to make this overtake and make this overtake stick, because he gains so much through the corners, but he loses it all on these straightaways, and that is the disadvantage of the Ferrari versus that Mustang. Two very polar opposite cars, one quick on the straights, one quick in the corners, and quick in the corners tends to be the harder one to overtake with, and so Usby's got his work cut out for him, and he'll have even more work cut out for him if he doesn't manage to run away from the Mustang as soon as he's in front. So, down on the straightaway. We're nearly a third of the way through this race. 40 minutes left on the clock, so still plenty of time for the drivers to overtake, and strategy on top of that. Drivers still have to serve their pit stop. No one's pitted yet in that top 22. Maybe someone in the bottom half of the grid has pitted. I don't see any pits on my sheet, though. Florian right on the bumper of Sebastian here, P8 and P7 respectively. Not giving much leeway to the Ferrari driver. That is an AMG, so he does have some straight line speed to work with, and that does mean he has a good potential to overtake the Ferrari in front of him. Pierre and Flynn will go side by side. A little bit of a argy-bargy move, but it will work out in the end. Flynn moves up a position into P19. Points paying positions for him. and moving up, doubling his points for this race, as the difference is 1 point. Starts on 1, ends on 2. Kelly very, very close behind Ivanov here for P10. Been this way for several laps now. We're going to see if he can make this move stick or not. A hairpin coming up. Nice corner for him to make a move. If he does decide that he wants to send it, not going to be the opportunity that he needs just yet. That is Linus just behind. So now Kelly's sort of in a sandwich. He needs to make this move sooner than later, or he's going to be in an opportunity, or going to be in a spot where any opportunity for him is an opportunity for the driver behind, equally so. He will not escape from this fight so easily anymore. It does give him the hardest job of any overtake. Being in the middle of two drivers always tends to be the most difficult position to be in during a race. So you have to think about defending, think about attacking. It's a lot to think about all at once, and you can't really defend and attack at the same time. So if the driver behind doesn't respect the fact that you want to overtake the driver ahead, you could end up in a situation where you're just not allowed to overtake the guy in front, lest you lose the position to the guy behind. So it's a position for a position trade, and it's whether or not you want to take that risk. With that being said, Kelly does have a little bit more of a gap, so I think Linus just making a mistake out of that final corner. That will give Kelly a little bit of breathing room. He will need to make this move sooner than later if he wants to manage it before he gets sandwiched yet again, and put Ivanov under pressure instead of himself. Because right now, Kelly has all the pressure. Ivanov just needs to know that if he stays in front, Kelly really can't overtake him all that easily. And if Kelly goes for a move and doesn't manage that move successfully, that will leave Linus in a position to benefit from that. So, difficult job here. I keep saying that. It really is the most difficult position to be in as a driver. Andrew Taggart going to demonstrate why, almost certainly, as he's closed in on the back of Mallow, and Mallow is sandwiched between two drivers, so that will leave Mallow in a situation equally as perilous as Kelly's. He'll have to worry about where Andrew Taggart is going to send this move, and it's a good exit from the McLaren driver. 0.8 behind, though, not going to be able to make the move, but it's a much better line for him down this straightaway. He should close in just a little bit more. Kelly is still 0.4 behind, down onto the straightaway. We'll see if he can make the move into 130R on the exit of 130R or down into the chicane. 0.3 seconds separating down into 130R. Very difficult corner to get right. It's just a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a downshift, and keep the throttle almost full. Andrew Taggart gonna get side by side with Mallow down the straightaway, so better exit from him out of Spoon, but he will give up through 130R. Doesn't want to stay side by side, making the safe decision. I don't know that it was the right decision, though. I would have stuck it in there. It was his corner on that inside line. Cavalcanti close behind P8 here, fighting with Florian. So Florian dropping back significantly from Sebastian, I think just making a mistake, and now that leaves Cavalcanti in a position to benefit. Used only 0.2 seconds behind the Mustang, and this is what we were talking about. That first sector is his best opportunity. You can see just how much quicker the Ferrari is through that first sector just by that gap alone. And now it starts to open back up as they go through the second sector, where the Ferrari doesn't really excel and the Mustang holds its own. And third sector, I can't imagine Yusubi can make an overtake here in the slightest. You can see just how much the gap opens up in a single little straightaway, and this isn't even a proper straight. You can only imagine how quick the Mustang is when it has the slipstream of another car, considering it just pulled a gap to the Ferrari, even though the Ferrari was thoroughly in its slipstream, only 0.4 behind. It's an amazing car, and well, if you drive it right, you are an incredibly difficult driver to overtake, and I think Yusubi is learning that feeling quite well, as Rufo driving the car as well as you can hope to. Still on the back foot, though, and I can't imagine Yusubi's going to give him any breathing room. And that really brings up the question, when do you pit? When do you pit? When do you change tires? Do you change tires at all? Do you fuel? How much do you fuel? Because if you're pushing hard, you're going to be using more fuel. If you decide not to push as hard, you're using less fuel. If you push less hard, you're saving tires. You could potentially save yourself up a full set of tires. Tires last a lot longer, and then just push flat out for that final stint. Give it everything you've got in the lesser amount of time. Or you can push all you've got at the very beginning of the race. And I don't think either one of these drivers has attempted that. Both of them are just keeping it smooth, keeping it as neat and tidy as they can. And will keep the gap opened fairly wide. Robert Kulin making a mistake. He will lose the position to Arct here. So I think spinning out on the exit of the corner, and Arct will get collected. And I think that's him off onto the grass. So that will be an incident for the stewards to review. It's not the incident Arct was hoping for. I think well, he tried to make the move, tried to make the best of his opponent's mistake, and instead another mistake has caught him out and caught him into the gravel trap. Hopefully he's able to get that car moving again, and it looks like he has rejoined the track successfully. But he has lost a lot of positions, dropping all the way to P11. So from P4 on the grid all the way to P11 on the grid. Or rather, P12 on the grid. Kelly will finally make the move on Ivanov. Just a better exit from him out of Spoon. And down onto the straightaway, he will go defensive to the inside. Holds that inside line for 130R. He will slowly make his way back across the track as he realizes Ivanov is not challenging into the corner. And now Kelly has cemented himself into P10. He does need to run away from the Lamborghini driver lest he lose the position. And looks like he has held that position very nicely. Florian very, very close behind Cavalcanti here for P7. Sweeping through the first corner and down into the S's. This was where the McLaren should be a much stronger car than the AMG. Ivanov still right behind Kelly as well as they go through the first corner. Ferrari there should be the better of the two matchups for this first sector. You can see where the McLaren is gaining time. It is those S's. It's got a lot more grip on the fronts, a lot less grip on the rear, which helps you rotate the car very nicely. It might be a mid-engine car, but it certainly doesn't drive like it's got a lot of weight in the back. Or rather, a lot of grip in the back. It's got plenty of weight in the back, that's for certain. Lots of close battles. It's pretty much bumper to bumper for some of these drivers, as it's 2 in front of 2. No battle has really been cemented so far, aside from maybe Kelly's fight with Ivanov, as he does run away just a little bit. The gaps are still relatively close, nothing's really opened up, and that does mean that there's still an opportunity for overtakes, for pit stop strategies, and all sorts of different fun things. A 0.1 of a second, or sorry, not 0.1 of a second, 1.0 seconds separating Yuzubi from Rufo. So the battle for P2 has not ended yet, but Yuzubi just not able to close the gap enough on the sector that he needs it. And it's costing him so dearly. He closes in through the first sector, loses through the second, and loses through the third. It's a win-lose-lose situation for the Ferrari. Florian will make the position to Cavalcanti as Cavalcanti dives into the pit lane. We're going to start to see some of the first pit stops this race. You can already see plenty of drivers on the map with green next to their name, and that does mean that they have served their pit stop. They no longer need to pit for the rest of the race, and they are free sailing to set as fast a lap as they can and hopefully overtake their opposition when they enter the pit lane. Yuzubi still right on the bumper of that Mustang, looking for any sort of mistake, any sort of opportunity he can take advantage of to set himself into P2 and take away that middle of the podium position. Still very close between the drivers right now. No gaps have really opened up in the slightest. See just how far away that Mustang gets after just a couple of straightaways, just how quickly the Ferrari closes in whenever they're not on a straightaway, and the difference is absolutely astronomical between these two cars. It's practically like watching two different motorsports fighting at the same time. It's effectively what you get with GT3. You get very different car-making philosophies from different teams. Ferrari tends to be a very stable platform. Mustang tends to be a very top-speed dependent platform. They're very opposite in the way that they're designed. You can see it in even just the body language of these cars. One's a brick, one's a little pancake, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. Well, it turns out the brick is faster in a straight line. That is American engineering for you. Doesn't need to be slick if it just goes fast with a bigger engine. More drivers enter the pit lane, so we will start to see some positions swap around on the left-hand side of the screen. That is your leaderboard for this race, showing all the way down to P22. Red numbers mean that drivers are within closing distance of each other. That does mean Andrew Taggart is within closing distance, and that does mean that Cavalcanti has just overtaken Pierre for P14. Cavalcanti and Pierre are in two different fights, though, so I'm almost certain Pierre gave way there rather than contesting for a position that he can't really keep. Position that they can keep, though. Mallow and Andrew Taggart have both pitted, so this is for position, and this will be a nice boon for Andrew Taggart. At least something to tide him over while he pushes back through the field. It's a nice smooth overtake. Will give him some clean air. Nico, fastest lap of the race, a 1:58.990. So practically setting quali pace as he now enters the pit lane for his one and only stop of the race. Unless there's some sort of incident, I can't see him pitting again. That's the Mustang into the pit lane, so now it is hammer time for Yuzubi. He needs to go as fast as he physically can in order to take that position away from the Mustang driver. The Mustang driver will be slow on pit exit. He will be slow while he waits for his tires to grip up with the track, and that does give an opportunity for Yuzubi to take advantage of the situation and make the overtake while he is on that used rubber. The problem is that rubber too used or not? He's flashing the lights at a blue flag driver. Apologies, I have the hiccups already. Will get past the blue flag driver without incident. So it's a temporary P1 for Yuzubi, but it may well turn into a less than temporary P2. Does need to set some good pace right now, though. That is the most important thing for him. Not setting that pace will put him in a very dangerous situation where he's having to catch up on fresh tires rather than just driving on fresh tires. It's one thing to overtake when you're on a fresh set of rubber. It's another thing to push hard and then try to overtake. You'll wear out your tires a lot quicker doing that, so it's important to use up as much of this tire set as you can in order to set yourself up for an overtake later on. Rufo might encounter some traffic here, which would certainly help Yuzubi in his endeavors. Yuzubi is hoping for anything he can right now, almost certainly. Rufo having to fight with a car that he doesn't want to fight with would be quite the gift to Yuzubi's race and position. Another driver into the pit lane, that's Kerlin diving into the pits. Ivanov behind will likely follow suit soon. So will Linus, and so will Julian. Most drivers have pitted, so not many drivers left to pit. And that is Ivanov into the pit lane. So that leaves Linus and Julian in that top 10 left to pit. So does Yuzubi, but I think Yuzubi will be one of the last drivers to pit this race. May well see a pit around the 25-minute mark or later. And we are more than halfway through with this race. Not a whole lot of time left for drivers to make the overtake. This is where it's going to start to come down to the wire. Less than a short race's length of time left does mean that you've only got a few overtaking opportunities left for you in this race, whether that be from mistakes from your opponents, the number of corners on track, because considering you're not going to see the corners very often, probably 10 more times, 10, 12 times. And if there's only really one corner you're good at, that's only 12 opportunities to overtake in the entirety of the race. Would mean, well, you kind of have to take advantage of those opportunities and take a riskier move than you would otherwise want to. That is Yuzubi into the pit lane, so he will now be under threat from Rufo. We'll see the gap as and when it's relevant. Right now, Carlos, right behind Kerlin for P4, is the relevant fight. And down into the hairpin they go. That Audi under threat from the AMG. AMG is a very quick car in a straight line, but so is the Audi, so both cars quite evenly matched here. As down into Spoon and the back stretch. Nico should be overtaking Yuzubi in the pit lane here any second now. That will mean Rufo will be coming across the line and any second now. This is hammer time. Yuzubi on the exit of the pit lane. Rufo on the final corner. It looks like Rufo has lost the position to Yuzubi. Yuzubi out of the pit lane. On that pit exit, the car on the right, that is Rufo. It's going to be very, very close as they go down turn 1, but it's going to be Yuzubi now into P2, moving his way up a position with the very lucky pit stop. And that works out great in his favor. Carlos will close in on Kerlin even further as we go through the first corner. So Yuzubi doing a wonderful job moving his way up a position. And Rufo will now be on the back foot, both with his tire wear and with his position. But, apologies. It's not my morning. So down into the middle sector they go. Carlos still right on the back of that Audi. Robert will be, no doubt, looking in his mirror and seeing the very blinding, bright headlights of that AMG. Well, they are very, very bright headlights indeed. I believe we're on board with the wrong car, but you can see just how much glare there is on the camera. Well, I can imagine it's even worse when you've only got a mirror and it shines into your eyes while you're trying to see a rather dark track ahead of you, trying to pick up brake markers in the shadows. There are a few brake markers here at the wonderful track of Suzuka that tend to be a little bit further away from the track. And they are harder to spot. If you can spot them, they are good markers, but when you can't see them, it's not really a good marker. I kind of need to see a marker in order for it to be useful. And, well, I'm sure drivers had learned that very quickly. I'm sure it's why they did so much free practice today. This was the most free practice we've seen before any race so far, if I'm not mistaken. No change in position just yet. But Robert still under an immense amount of pressure from the AMG behind. That pressure not being relieved anytime soon. As through they go, through Dunlop, down into turn 8. Cavalcanti right on the back of Sebastian here might be able to make the overtake. 0.1 of a second for a minute there. So nearly making the move, but not quite the space he needed in order to make it stick. Will it be a dive down to the hairpin? No. No dive into the hairpin. Still bumper to bumper, and I believe that is a blue flag car maybe in front. No, that's a blue flag car at the back of this pack. So blue flag might make himself, well, get himself involved in this fight if he really wants to. And there is no rule against unlapping yourself, although you are asked to do it in a reasonable manner. And I think you could make an argue that overtaking normally is a reasonable manner. As long as you don't cause any incident with it, you're fine. Rufo has very quickly closed in on Uzebe. So that gap that was quite open is no longer so. It's sort of an inverse of what we saw before, as now that gap will open up during the sections the Ferrari is quick at, and close in anytime the Mustang is the quicker car. These two drivers very, very evenly matched. Well, we talk about machinery because that's about the only difference between them right now, is the car they're driving. That's ultimately what's going to play the biggest influence when you have two drivers running almost the exact same pace. You saw Uzebe catch up while he was behind Rufo. Rufo is catching up while he's behind Uzebe. So you can obviously obviously tell quite evenly matched drivers here. And this is where we see the Mustang really close in on the Ferrari. Hardly a gap left after just a single little straightaway. Waiting for the delta to update, because 1.0 seconds doesn't sound quite right to me. But it well could be, as that gap opens up just a little bit going onto the straightaway. 20 minutes left of racing, and right now, Carlos has closed in still. Stayed right with Kerlin. So P4 and P2 both in fights of their own. Cavalcanti fighting for P7. Arct fighting for P9. So plenty of drivers all very, very close to each other. That is exactly what we want to see. Through the S's for closing in on some of the final times this race. This is where the Audi is a little bit quicker. It's a little bit more nimble than the AMG. Well, the AMG certainly shouldn't be understated. While it is a front-engine car, it is still plenty capable in the corners. Most GT3s are very capable in the corners. The Mustang really being the only outlier where it actively despises having to turn. Position change as Florian, I think, goes off the track here and makes a mistake. That will drop him down 2 positions. As those 2 cars you saw just in front were behind him only a moment prior. So it's certainly going off the track, making a mistake, and losing a good number of places. Not going to be the outcome he would have wanted. And now, Kelly looking to take advantage just behind. Kelly wants this position just as much as anyone else does. So Cavalcanti has closed in quite significantly. We're gonna go back on board. We're switching between them, trying to see who's doing what. And right now, 0.3 of a second separating. Nearly thought about making the move there. I could see the little bit of a weave from the McLaren as he tried to determine the optimal path through the corner. And down into T1. Will the McLaren make the move? He's nowhere near close enough for it just yet. Should be able to close in just a little bit through these corners, trying his best in this high-speed section. Ferrari and McLaren should both be quite quick here. I think the Ferrari is a little bit quicker. Florian and Kelly will go side by side through the section. In fact, well, not even go side by side. I think Florian went off the track and made a mistake, lose the position to both Arct and Kelly. Might have been contact between him and Arct. But that's what the sheet is showing with those with those caution signs, with those exclamation marks. Cavalcanti still right on the bumper of that Ferrari, trying his best to find any opportunity to make the move. And down onto the back straight for 15 minutes left of racing. Not a lot of time left for the drivers to make the move. That is a quarter of the time that they started with. So we're 3/4 through the race. And, well, still fights going on up and down the field. Never really stopped fighting for any of the drivers. Gap has never truly opened up for most of these fights. Usby has finally set himself 2.3 ahead. So Usby, with that clean air, will no longer have to worry about the Mustang behind. He will surely be free to run away and take home P2, as long as he doesn't make any sort of critical error. Cavalcanti still on the bumper of Sebastian here in P7, fighting for P6. Carlos still on the bumper of Kerlin for P4, and Florian still on the bumper of Arct for P9. So lots of fights going on right now. We're still on board with Cavalcanti, though, staying with the McLaren driver. Go on the front splitter camera. Just have a look at the speed that these drivers carry through some of these corners. There's the hairpin. There's how close they get through the hairpin. It's hardly a gap at all for most of that. down into Spoon. 15 minutes left on the clock. 13 now, I think, if I am reading that properly. It is quite small on my screen, and it is 13 minutes left for these drivers to make this move. So not a whole lot of time left. They are starting to run thin. This is where we can start to see some more desperate overtaking maneuvers. This is where we could see a driver send it where they otherwise wouldn't have sent it if there was more time on the clock. This is the time to take risks, and this is where we will see drivers start thinking about those risks and where to take them. Down onto the straightaway, and we'll see if the McLaren can get the run down into T1. The Ferrari not the quickest on the straights, but certainly holding its own against the McLaren right now. And that stays true through the main straightaway down into T1. Cavalcanti not making the move just yet, still stuck behind that Ferrari. And Suzuka, not an easy track to overtake on. It tends to be one of the harder tracks to overtake on, especially with our calendar this season. Carlos has closed in on Kerlin, 0.3 of a second separating. This could be a move down into the hairpin as they exit the, some of the more tricky corners. 0.4 separating. Will he send it from a long way back? He will stay behind just for now. And down into Spoon we go for the final 10 minutes of racing. I believe this will be the, only about 6 more opportunities to make the move down into Spoon. 6 more opportunities to make the move into the hairpin. 6 more laps of fuel left in the tank for these drivers. Onto the straightaway for the number 5 and the 21 just ahead. 0.4 of a second separating. It's a good exit from the AMG. He will close that gap just a little bit more as they go down towards 130R. Sweeps around the corner and down into the chicane they go. A good line here is needed to make the move down into T1, and it's a good line from the AMG. Looks like Kerlin might have missed the apex there. That'll cost him time on exit. That'll cost him straight line speed on exit. 0.3 might be 0.2 as we go down the main straight. It's going to be bumper to bumper as they go down into T1. Will it be a move from the AMG? It doesn't look close enough just yet, but it's going to be closing in even more as we go down into the S's. This is where we're going to start to see some more desperate moves from the drivers. We were talking about that, and we might well see a desperate move here from Carlos, or a rather more ambitious move than not. As we get one of the best camera perspectives for Suzuka, one of my favorite cameras here at Suzuka, that panning shot of those cars, that top-down panning shot, wonderfully done from the camera operator. And down through the middle sector yet again, no overtaking opportunities have presented themselves. Seeing some weird lighting in the background as drivers go over the bridge. Interesting to see. Blue flag giving way on the inside. That could be an opportunity for Carlos to make the move, but right now it's only cost Carlos time. So I think blue flag, little bit of disruption there. Did his best to give way. I think he gave way as best as he could. Not sure what else you can really expect from them giving way into the hairpin. I want to see which driver that was. That was the 38 of Pierre. So yeah, just giving away best they could. Nothing more they really could have done. And down that back straight, that back stretch of track, one of the better overtaking opportunities. But 130R tends to make it a little bit tricky. You really have to get it right, and that is not Carlos getting it right. That's going very, very wide, losing a lot of lap time. Just carrying too much speed, braking too late, and now 2 seconds separating him and Robert. Robert could be safe here if he just holds his pace, just holds his own, doesn't get held up by some of this lap traffic, but this is where we're going to start to see some of the bigger influences, although that will not be an influence from, I think that is Flynn in that BMW. Will go all the way wide of the corner, doesn't block Doesn't block Curlin in the slightest. Might have partially blocked Carlos there with the rejoin back onto the track. Kelly close on the back of Cavalcanti here for P7. So Cavalcanti not getting away from the Ferrari driver, that RSR driver, showing why he is a rocket stallion and rocketing all the way onto the bumper of P7. Do not worry about the leaderboard, just I think misreading one of the driver positions. Set them up into P1 when they are really in P11. I think going off the track might be tricking the sheet, as now they're into the pit lane. Should correct itself in a minute. Regardless, they do not have that position in actuality. I'll commentate as such. Kelly is P8, still fighting for P7, trying so hard to get that position back or away from Cavalcanti. I think we can look at the starting positions. We certainly can. So Kelly has gained 3 positions from his start. Cavalcanti has gained 2. Nico stayed where he was. Yuzubi's gained 2 positions. Rufo stayed where he was. Florian up... I can't look at Florian just yet. Robert Curlin should be up 1 position. Carlos down 3 positions. Sebastian up 3 positions. And as we were saying, I think Cavalcanti moved up 3 positions. Kelly 4 positions, so not quite accurate there. And Ivanov should be up another 4 positions as well. So Florian is in the pit lane, not ahead of these drivers. He pitted behind these drivers. It just seems to be a little bit of an issue with tracking when a driver has entered the pit lane here at Suzuka. It sort of gives them an extra lap on my sheet, which it shouldn't do, but it is doing. So I don't know entirely what's up with that. Regardless, Kelly is still right behind Cavalcanti here, fighting for P7. Actual P7, not a fake P7. In fact, there is a driver in front who has not pitted yet, and that will be a position gained for Kelly and Cavalcanti after that driver pits. It seems a little bit late to not be pitting, but you do you. 5 minutes left on the clock, so only about 3 laps of racing here left to go, depending on where Nico is, and Nico will cross the line just about now, so that does mean that there is 3 laps left of running officially for the leader of this race. Could be 1 or 2 more depending on where you are on track. 0.4 of a second separating Kelly from Cavalcanti, and Cavalcanti will start to feel the pressure in this final few minutes of racing. Not a lot of time left for the drivers. Not a lot of opportunities left for the drivers. There's only 3 laps of running left. That means 3 opportunities in your fast corner, in that 1 opportunity spot where you think that you are better than your opponent, and only 3 more laps worth of chances for drivers to make mistakes. It's really all down to the wire now. It's all down to these final few opportunities. Will Kelly be able to move himself up into P7, or will he be stranded in P8? Nico seems to have run away with the lead of this race. Yuzubi runs away with P2, and Rufus ran away with P3. So the front of the grid looks pretty well decided right now. But it's not decided here in the midfield, and Kelly will go side by side on that inside line through turn 1, gets squeezed to the outside, backs out of the move through the S's, and he tried to make the move through turn 1. He knows the spot where he can make the move into turn 1. I don't know who Icebreaker TV is, but having your screen turn off mid-drive is never ideal. Oh, that is an unfortunate thing to happen then. It's an unfortunate way for the race to end. Very, very close behind. I thought Kelly was going to send it there. No move just yet. But he will have the move on the exit of the corner, the switchback maneuver. Oh, not quite. It's a better exit for Cavalcanti, but that is certainly showing some weakness from the McLaren, showing some nerves from the McLaren, and that's nerves that Kelly wants to take advantage of as he tries to dive down the inside, backs out at the last minute, and this gap looks like it's just going to close in more and more as the laps go on, down onto the back stretch for the second to last, no, might be third to last time this race. As well, a weird graphical bug there, which drivers returning to the pit lane, the connection to the server, not the best, or it could have been a driver joining and causing a little bit of issue on the server end. Whatever the case, some of these graphics on screen are not accurate. Those will update soon enough. Worry not. Because it's saying Kerlin is P1 and Kerlin is not P1. It is Nico in P1, and that will update to their appropriate positions. There we are. Still very close behind with Kelly and Cavalcanti. This will be a position that they almost certainly can't lose to each other, but they can lose to blue flags. Or rather, not lose to each other, but lose to some of the other drivers on track. They have plenty of gap to ensure that no matter how hard they fight, they are clear of the other drivers. The blue flag might play influence here. Holding that inside line, Kelly will be forced to run just a little bit wide. That will cost him a bit of lap time here at a track like Suzuka, where you really want to be on those apexes, really cutting over those apexes. Apexes here at Suzuka tend to be where you do some of the most of your track cutting. Final lap for Nico, so that does mean that Kelly has this and the next lap as his final opportunities to make the move, and right now, that blue flag has opened up the gap significantly. 1.3 seconds separating him from Cavalcanti. And that's going to play into this position and this position change in the long run. This position will turn into a fight for P6, I do believe, after Sebastian serves his pit stop. Because Sebastian has not pitted just yet. You are required to pit at least once during this race, unless somehow my graphic has messed up. It is my graphic being messed up, because he has served his pit stop, so it thinks he has another mandatory pit stop to serve. We'll go ahead and manually remove that to stave off any confusion. All drivers have served their pit stops. It is final lap of running here for Suzuka, and we're going to go on board with Nico for this final lap. Keep an eye on that gap in case it closes in any. But it looks like Nico is going to be taking home the win here at Suzuka, here for the 5th round of running in Phoenix SimSports Season 11. And what a wonderful drive it was from Nico. I feel like I've said this multiple weeks in a row now, but it's an amazing drive from our current championship leader, who's making sure he has an absolutely dominant lead this season. Doesn't want to give any opportunities to his rivals, and he will cross the line in P1, the number 24, running a little bit wide of the chicane. Can't say that's the optimal racing line, but he will cross the line in P1 and take home the victory here at Suzuka. Yuzubi in P2 will hold this position all the way to the end. That is Rufo just behind him, looking to close that gap as much as possible just before the line. Hopefully Yuzubi has the fuel to finish. He should well have the fuel to finish this race. Across the line, Yuzubi will take P2. Rufo just behind will not make it easy. He will take P3 across the line. As Yuzubi doing a wonderful demonstration of how not to keep the car going in a straight line. He does recover, and they will go side by side for some photos, almost certainly. No, Yuzubi into the pit lane, so no photos for him. Julian in the pit lane showing a gap, but not actually a gap. And the last few drivers to cross the line will be Kelly. He's closed in on Cavalcanti, but it's not going to be enough to take that position. So he will be stuck in P8. Cavalcanti P7 as they cross the line. And what a race we've witnessed today. And a great battle from all of the drivers. Wonderful, wonderful driving from everyone. And, well, certainly a race we hope to see repeated again. As a couple drivers doing donuts, almost hits Kelly there. I think just about avoiding him. And yeah, we're just gonna go on board with, there's the camera I'm looking for, with Nico as our race winner. What a wonderful job driving that car home today. And what a wonderful job taking the win of Suzuka, of the 5th round of running. And setting his lead even further into the, well, into the history books of Phoenix Sim Sport on a perfect streak right now, and he's not going to end it so soon. Great racing from all the drivers, and I hope you will join us again next week, same time, same place, for the next round of running. Need to see where we are on the calendar. We'll be racing at Hungaroring for our final wet race of the season. 60 minutes, so a full hour of racing at a rather difficult circuit. Not easy to drive the circuit in the dry. Will be even harder in the wet. So I hope you'll join us for that. And with that, you all have a wonderful day. And thank you to all of the drivers for making this a wonderful, wonderful race.